Well, it's the end of the year, and that means that it's time for the Spike VGAs to be only slightly video game related, as usual, and that it's time for everybody else to start deciding which video games get a Game of the Year release next year. I never much cared for the Game of the Year competitions because they generally just compounded the entire year into just a few titles that I didn't feel was really representative of the year as a whole. So I'm going to take a broader look at 2010 and give a quick rundown of the year for video games from start to finish. The year began with Darksiders and Bayonetta, which were the best Zelda and Devil May Cry games that I'd played in years. Following that was Dark Void, which promised to be Crimson Skies meets Rocketeer, but was really just an unfinished and disappointing mess. Mass Effect was the opposite of Dark Void. No More Heroes 2 came and went, could have done with a bit more advertising. BioShock 2 wasn't exactly what people were hoping for, but it was still good anyway. We got a new Ace Attorney game, now with more Fabulous. Heavy Rain was definitely worth the wait, easily one of the most interesting games of the year. Napoleon came back to steal 21 gigabytes of our hard drives. Final Fantasy XIII finally came out, tried something different, and paid for it. Yakuza 3 finally made it to the States, thanks to the fans. Good job, guys. A couple of Pokemon remakes came out, not that all the Pokemon games are that different anyway, but good nonetheless. There was some God of War, and if you were still hungry after that, there was some more God of War. Just Cause 2 was a very impressive sandbox game with very silly voice acting. We finally got to hunt some monsters, no claw required. Super Street Fighter 4 came out, and it was definitely more than DLC or a patch. An old school Zelda game by From Software? Okay, that's pretty good. Alan Wake finally came out.
Can you hear me now?
Red Dead Redemption, Mario Galaxy 2, and Mod Nation Racers all came out within a week of each other, immediately followed by Metal Gear Solid Peace Walker, which is still one of the best portable games that I've ever played. That's a pretty good start compared to how summers usually work out for video games. Oh, and I guess Blizzard still makes games. Scott Pilgrim was worth it just for the sprites alone. We got a new Metroid game that tried something different and paid for it. 300% more Spider-Man, 100% less free roam. I never would have expected to say this, but it looks like Duke Nukem Forever might be in stores before Square Enix even announces Kingdom Hearts 3.
Oh god. Oh god.
I have 12 matchsticks. Which of these homes is the most blue? There was a new Halo game. Civ 5. But I haven't even figured out everything in Civ 4 yet. You know, Square, I just don't know, man. I just don't know. There were literally too many games to play in October. Castlevania, Enslaved, NBA Jam, Kirby, Fallout, Naruto, Vanquish, Fable 3, Red Dead Redemption Undead Nightmare, Super Meat Boy, Costume Quest. It was an amazing month. The only thing in October that wasn't so good was, LucasArts didn't used to be like this. November was a lot like October, but just not quite as good. Activision brought us a new version of GoldenEye, and so did some fellows on the PC for free. There was a new Call of Duty, gotta make their money before that gets run into the ground. The high-definition PlayStation 2 collections are really nice. You probably haven't even heard of Majin and the Forsaken Kingdom, and that's too bad. It's really weird seeing GT5 in stores after it's been delayed for so long. How are you going to feel when you see an actual released copy of Duke Nukem Forever? The inexcusably long wait for a new Donkey Kong Country game is finally over. It seems like Epic Mickey didn't live up to most people's expectations, but this seems like a game that people will appreciate in the future rather than when it's released. In my whole life, the two games that I've waited the longest to own were Golden Sun 3 and X-Men Arcade. Both of those games came out this year within 15 days of each other. I'm very happy with 2010. We saw a lot of new intellectual properties come out, as well as the release of many games that people had been waiting for years. Every gaming platform got something good. Nobody was left out. This year was good. So good, in fact, that it actually started to become a problem. It happens like this. There's a game that comes out that you've been looking forward to, so you pick it up and you have a good time, but there's a lot of games coming out, so you pick up a second one and, well, you haven't played that one yet, so you gotta get started on that, and you put aside the first one. Then a third game comes out, and this one might be one of the big must-have titles of the year, so you pick that one up as well. Well, now you have to play this one, so the second one that you haven't quite finished yet, you just put that aside. Then a fourth game comes out, and maybe this is one that your friends have been playing, people have been recommending it to you, so you pick that one up as well, and, well, the third game is, you've played that for a bit, time to give the new one a try, so you just put that aside. Then you might be walking around and you'll see some titles from earlier in the year or maybe previous years that are now very cheap. Maybe there's some buy two get one free sales going on, and then you pick up 2 or 5 of those, and, well, you can't play them all, so some of those you just put aside. Later on in the year, for some reason or another, you'll want something new, so maybe you'll go back and pick up some of those titles from earlier in the year that seemed interesting that you just passed right over. This'll come just in time for the holidays. Holiday games are just going to start coming out, and they're just going to keep coming, sometimes 6 in one day. There's no way you can keep up with it, but you'll just keep picking up games anyway. There'll be another game next week, so you'll play these games for a little bit at a time and then pick up the next one. You'll just keep putting them aside. You'll just keep putting things aside until eventually it's 2011, where you're just going to do this all over again. What you're doing is creating just one massive backlog of games that you just can't possibly keep up with. You'll keep telling yourself that you'll get around to them later, but later never comes. There isn't enough free time in your world to cover all of these games that you have added to your backlog. It gets to a point where you just collect video games. You don't play them, you just buy them, you put them on your shelf, and then you promise yourself that you'll get around to them later. All over again. Yes, 2010 was a very good year for video games.